Now, how do we handle arrays in functional programming? One very common method on arrays is the .push method. And all this does is it adds one element to the array, like this. So if we say .push 4, we add the element 4 to our original array. Now obviously, we cannot use this in functional programming, because we're changing the original state of the array. We're changing it, and we cannot have mutating data in functional programming. Instead, we've got an array, that is 1, 2, 3, and then we just can have a new array, and we're spreading the old array and we're adding 4. That's how we generally are doing this. And for those of you who don't know what these 3 dots are, we're just taking the old array and we're putting it into here. So we actually have the old array just with one extra element. The way we call these methods, such as push, is destructive. Alright? And in functional programming, we want to use non-destructive methods. So here's another example. Let's say we've got an array of, let's say, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And we just want to take out a little chunk out of this array. So what we could do is we could use the .slice method. And we can just say slice from, let's say, the first element to the 4th element, something like that. And then we can get, for example, something such as 2, 3, 4, or 2, 3, 4, 5. Just one piece of the array. And the .slice method just returns a new array, so we've got a new array. And this is non-destructive. This is good in functional programming. What we don't want to use in the functional programming are destructive methods, such as .splice, which does the exact same thing as .slice, just that it actually changes the old array, and we don't want that to happen. So here are some non-destructive methods that are very useful in functional programming. So probably one of the most popular methods is for each. And in my opinion, for each is great, but oftentimes you can actually replace it with one of these other methods. So for example, .map, which if you want to have a new array based on the old array, you'll use .map. Or filter, which just takes out some of the elements. Slice, we've already looked at that, we just can get out a chunk of the array. And these are two methods that I think are very underrated. So .sum is very similar to .forEach, and we're going to look at that later on, because we can break out of the loop, so we can just say, stop looping for the rest of this array from now on. We're going to look at that just in a second. And .reduce, which is, if you want to get one value from the array, we're going to use .reduce. And we're going to look at these methods just now. And by the way, these are just some methods that I really like and I think are very useful, but obviously there are many, many more. So let's say we've got an array that starts with, let's say 0, so just so it makes it easier for us. And let's say what we want to do now is we want to log each element by itself. So what we could do is say r, which is the name of this array, .forEach, which is the first method that I showed you. And then we can just say we're going to pass in a function, and this takes in the element, or the number, let's call it number. And what we can do is we can just console.log this number, like this. And as you can see, it logs all of the numbers separately. So let's look at this one, .reduce. What we could do is if we want to say, we want to get the sum of all of these different elements, we can just create, we can just use the reduce function, because we want to get one value which gets created and gets generated out of all of these different items. And again, we're going to pass in a function. And this function takes in two parameters, or 2 arguments. The arguments that it takes in is, first of all, the element, so I'm just going to call this number again, and the result, and the final result that we're currently working on. So I'm just going to call this one result, okay? And we want to return our new result. So we want to return whatever in the next, so it's just going to loop through the array again, just like for each, and we want to return whatever in the next number we want to have as a new result. And once we're done, it's going to return our result. So I'm just going to say number plus result. That's what I'm just going to return. And in an array function, we don't have to write out the return keyword. So this is going to give us the sum of the array. So as you can see, we get 15, which is the correct result. Okay? And another one that I wanted to show you was this one, the .sum method. And this is just like .forEach, so what we could say is array.sum, and then we log it to the console, like this. as you can see, it just logs each element separately again. Now, how is it different? But what we could do is we could say, actually, we just want to log all items going, let's say, that fulfill a certain condition. And this condition could be if the number is smaller than 4. Only then we want to console.log the number, and then we want to return false, because we want to go on. And otherwise we want to just return true. And whenever we return a truthy value, all this does is it says, alright, we can actually break out of the array, stop doing the rest of the elements. It just goes from 0 to 3. Now I don't know if it's that useful over here in this example. We probably do it a bit differently, but in many examples the .sum method is very, very useful. And all it returns is if we've broken out of our loop. And this is going to be a boolean, so if I log this, as you can see it says true because we've broken out. If we say do this as long as the number is smaller than 100, as you can see it's going to say false because we haven't broken out. So let's say you've got something like this. You've got an array of users with a name and an age. And what you want in the end is an array of only the ages under 28, and they should be sorted. So how are we going to do this? Well, in object-oriented programming, or let's say in procedural programming, it really depends, but many people, what they would do is they would start making a for loop, and they would keep pushing onto one array, and then they've got the end result. But we don't want to do this in functional programming. What we want to do instead is just use our array functions that we've got over here. So I'm going to store this in a constant. I'm going to call this one ages, and I'm going to call this one users. And first of all, we only want the age, we don't want the name, so we can just say .map, and we can map because we want to get a new array depending on the old array. We want to get a new array of only the ages. And I'm going to take in the user, it's going to take in the user, and let me make this a bit bigger. And all this is going to do is it will return the user dot age. So it's going to return whatever the new element should be, and it's going to loop through the array again. And whatever the new element is, this is going to be our new array. We get an array of only the ages. Perfect. So now what we want to do is we want to only have ages that are under 28. So what we'll have to use is the filter method. And with the filter method, what we want to do is we want to return a boolean. And if the boolean is true, then it's going to keep it in the array, and if the boolean is false, it's going to take it out of the array. And again, it's going to loop through all of the elements. So we're going to take in the age this time. And what it's going to do is it's going to say, if the age is smaller than 28, then we want to return true. I'm going to use a ternary operator over here. And otherwise, I'm going to return false. So, as you can see, now if I save again, we don't have Mary over here because she's 13. She's not under 28. So this also works. And the last thing we want to do is we want to sort them. And the way we can sort is, I haven't shown you this, but it's very simple. We can just say .sort. And we could add our own sorting functionality, but all this really does is it just sorts the ages from small to large. So, let's see. Now they are actually sorted. So you can see, using functional programming, you can do this very clean and it's very fast. And I think this is a lot nicer than having a huge for loop and a lot of different things that you want to tack on. So I'll show you another example. Let's say we want to get the product of all ages. So basically, let's say we want to get all ages multiplied with each other. And again, for this, what we're going to have to do, I'm going to set this equal to users. And we're going to have to map again, because we only want the ages first of all. And then what we have to do, because we only want to have one single value in the end, is use the reduce method. And this time, well, instead of writing out the thing over here, I'm just going to create this multiply function. It takes an a, which is a number, takes an b, which is a number, and it returns a times b. And what we can do over here is we can just pass in this multiply function. So it takes in the current age and the current result and multiplies them. So over here, as you can see, it's quite a big number. So with these array methods, you can be very, very flexible, and you can write very, very nice code in very little space.